My name is Richard Bass. I'm a hazard mitigation, community education, and outreach specialist, and I'm going to be talking about cleaning up after a disaster. So, after a hurricane, flood, or major storm, you want to be able to start the cleanup process as soon as safely possible. And the reason why you want to do that is because the longer you wait, the worse the situation can become. So if you have to wait a while, then more bad weather could come in, the situation can deteriorate, mold and mildew can take hold within 24 to 48 hours, your structure can deteriorate, your personal belongings can deteriorate. So you definitely want to get started as soon as safely possible. And you're going to do this by taking a walk around your property, your building, or your business and check for down power lines, possible gas leaks, and any kind of safety hazards, any problems with the structure that could be potential hazards when you begin your cleanup and repair process. So rule number one, you want to always be wearing personal protective equipment. And this is per the Centers for Disease Control. So at a minimum, you want to be wearing an N95 mask, gloves, and goggles. So the reason why you want to be wearing protective boots is because of this, because floodwaters are often contaminated with bacteria, chemicals, and sewage. So as the floodwaters are moving around, they'll be picking up all these nasty things. These septic tanks can back up, the sewer can back up, and it'll be picking up all of that. And you don't want to be standing around in flip-flops, tennis shoes, and certainly not barefooted, wading around in contaminated floodwaters. Also, if you have a cut, it can become infected, and you can also develop tetanus. So be careful about wading around in the floodwaters. So the first actions that you're going to take when you start the process is you want to be able to clean out the mud and debris. And to be able to do that, you've got to get rid of all the moldy, water damaged items from the home so you can get in there and squeegee, push out all the sludge and get in and start cleaning out the walls, removing baseboards, and getting rid of the mold and disinfecting. Also, you want to check your roof. If you have damage to the roof, if you have a hole in the roof or holes in the siding, you want to patch those up, get a tarp on the roof because more bad weather could be coming, so you don't want to compound that situation. And here's some examples of things that are going to have to come out. As you see, they've pulled out a lot of the damaged furniture, some doors, carpet, padding, looks like some personal items have been bagged up, and they have placed them near the curb so the debris pickup people can easily pick them up. And you may want, the municipality may want you to separate things out into categories, especially if there's some hazardous material, then they will probably want you to separate that out. But definitely if you have carpet, that's probably most likely going to have to come out. Padding is very absorbent. It'll absorb the contaminated floodwaters. It will certainly mold, mildew, sour. If you have, there's certain kind of carpets that might be in the basement that of that indoor-outdoor variety, you might be able to save that with a good steam cleaning with a certain kind of product, but most carpets and padding will have to be replaced. Hardwood floors, if they've been underwater for a long time, that's difficult to save. Tiles, porcelain tiles, you may be able to save that. Linoleum, just have to check it out. So every room that got flooded is going to have to be dried out. And your first steps to doing that is you're going to have to remove the baseboards. So the reason for that is even if there's a small amount of floodwaters in there, it will seep in underneath the baseboards and get back and contaminate the walls. So as you see here, if just a couple of inches or less of floodwaters got in, but it seeped into behind the baseboards, and so it's wet behind there, and you're going to need to get in there and dry that out. And on the drywall, you want to cut that up at least 1 foot above the water line. And you see where the water line is, but they did a good thing here is they cut this up about 4 feet, which works out nicely because once the drying out process and disinfecting is through, then they can come back in with a drywall at a 4 foot section on and turn it sideways and it'll fit in there nicely. But also pay attention to the electrical outlets. This one looks like it's about a standard 16 inches, but you want to take precautions of that and make sure there's no damages to the electrical systems, especially if the floodwaters got up higher than this, then you probably want to get an electrician in there to turn the power off and do a full checkup on everything. You don't want to be taking any chances with that. So taking steps to air out and dry out your home. And here they have these high velocity industrial fans, and I've seen even bigger ones than this that can really move a lot of air. So you want to open your doors and windows with these and blow these fans outside, direct them out there. Use dehumidifiers. You see one of these fans is kind of directed underneath the cabinets to air out over there. And if you only have 1 or 2 rooms that are damaged, water damaged or flood damaged, then you can partition them off with plastic over the doors and you can come and go as you need to, but that will prevent mold spores and other contaminants and smell from permeating through the rest of the house. And the recommendation for getting everything dried out is contractors will try to get that down to about 13 to 15% moisture in the wood products. And you can check that out. If you're doing it yourself, you can check that out with a hygrometer, and you should be able to get that at the big hardware stores, or I know you can buy them online. And anytime there's a major disaster, a big storm, then there's a loss of power and people bring out their portable generators. So you definitely want to use all the safety precautions that you can to prevent any accidents, because invariably there's some accidents involved after disasters with the portable generators. So you don't want that happening to you. So rule number 1, don't use them indoors, always outside 20 feet away from your home. Direct the exhaust away from your home and be sure the generator is turned off and cooled before refueling. And also, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a carbon monoxide detector, and you can put that in your home, and that will give you advance warning if there's any carbon monoxide creeping into your home, give you that little bit of safety. And while you're doing all of this, you want to go ahead and contact your homeowners insurance and flood insurance. And hopefully if you live in the flood zone or anywhere close to it, you have flood insurance, because that will be a big benefit to you. So you want to go ahead and contact and get that process going, and go ahead and take pictures and take an accounting, make a list of your personal belongings and your items that were damaged. Take pictures of the damaged home, the water lines inside and out, and that way you can have all that in case it takes a good while for the inspector to get out there. And I know after a big storm, the adjusters are spread out very thin, so a lot of times it takes a good while for them to get out to your home. And from FEMA's perspective, we don't require you to wait for the adjuster or the inspector to get out there, because we know that the damages can get worse and mold can spread, and you will have more deterioration by waiting longer. And also, FEMA and most insurance companies will not pay for damages that happen after the storm that you could have prevented from getting worse. So you definitely want to go ahead and take a list of everything that you have, and then if you can, pull out your damaged materials. And if it's going to be a while before you can get the adjuster and some contractors, and you want to go ahead and start taking some action on your own. And here's the reason why. It was because mold spores will spread and mold contamination will spread. And you see on these walls on the right where this wall is totally contaminated, and that's uninhabitable situation for that room. And if you have a few more rooms like that, then you can't live in that dwelling. You would have to evacuate. So what is mold? It's a naturally occurring fungus that's found in nature, both indoors and outdoors, and it serves a purpose outdoors where it decays dead organic material, leaves, twigs, branches, those kind of things. So that's a good thing, but you don't want to have a lot of it in your house, because it can really do some damage to your structure. And also it can cause major health issues. And as we see here, it can make you sick. So mold sickness is a real thing, and it affects some people worse than others. But I've talked to people, and most mitigators have talked to people who've been severely affected by mold sickness, and people with asthma and respiratory problems are affected more than others. But you can have breathing problems, aches and pains, headaches, runny nose, itchy eyes. So you definitely want to get rid of all the areas of mold contamination to make sure that this doesn't happen to you or in your family. And so we see here, this person has the personal protective equipment on, and they're tearing out the mold damaged walls, and so they can come back in, clean up, disinfect, and clean up the floors, and then come back in and start rebuilding. But this is what's visible, but you also want to look around and be careful for things that are not visible, such as if you may have some product problems in the attic, if rain came in or blew in through the storm. And also check underneath the house if you have a crawl space, because if you had floodwaters under there, you could have mold growing on the studs on the subfloors underneath. So that's a problem that people have also. So you definitely want to check under that. And if your HVAC is under there, you want to have heating and air expert come in there and take a look at that, because if they got in there, you don't want to be turning your air conditioner on and blowing mold spores or any kind of contamination in there. So definitely you want to be on the lookout for those areas too. So and here's an example of some pretty major problems. And in this case, you're probably looking at getting a remediation contractor to come in there and clean up, get rid of the mold, and make sure that the moisture levels are down. And most contractors are going to want to make sure that the mold has been cleaned up and that the moisture levels are down before they come in and start closing everything back up. And here's some examples of medium to minor damages, and you may be able to tackle some of this yourself. And there's a couple procedures for doing that, and we're going to get into that here just a second. And this looks like a bathroom wall with bathroom tile, and this is something that's a hard surface, so you could clean this up with soapy water, probably a good pine oil type solution. And we're not getting into the name brands, but there's a good name brand product for that. So use that to scrub and get rid of the grimy stuff, and then come back in, and you want to probably disinfect it a little further with the bleach solution, even though pine oil also is a good soap, but it does disinfect a little bit. But a lot of the agencies, CDC, EPA, and even FEMA recommends bleach because it's inexpensive and readily available. So, but one word of warning is you do not want to mix bleach with ammonia. That creates toxic fumes. And you do not want to mix it with vinegar that does the same thing. So that would be a problem. And the recipe, the recommended recipe is 1 cup of bleach to a gallon of water is the best way to go about for disinfecting. And you don't want to go much more than that, because then you're reaching the point of diminishing returns, because the bleach actually needs the water to help it do its job. And I've talked to contractors and people who've worked in cleaning up after disasters, and they would say, well, I'm going strong. I go half and half or more than half and half. And I'm thinking, you're really working against yourself, because bleach by itself is not the way to go. It really needs some water. You'd be better off using this concentration, this percentage, and maybe doing a couple of different applications. So you want to keep that in mind. You might could go a cup and a half or something like that, but that's a good, well-researched recommendation right there. And then again, never mix bleach with ammonia. Now, bleach is a good surface disinfectant. It works good on hard surfaces such as concrete, floors, metals, and countertops. I say most metals. Especially like the nickel brushed metals that are in the bathrooms. But it does not work very good on absorbent surfaces like wood products, baseboards, drywall, and those kind of things, because it just does not penetrate. It has surface tension problem that does not allow it to penetrate. Now, if that's all you have, you can use that. You can prepare the surface by scrubbing with a good soap scrub first, and then come back with the bleach, and that will help out. But bleach does not usually get down into the roots of the mold spores. So a better option for the studs and the baseboards and the drywall would be this kind of solution right here. And this is, you can find this well-researched over the internet, and you could even make your own solution of 2 tablespoons of baking soda and 2 tablespoons of washing soda in a quart of warm water. And washing soda is a little different than baking soda. It's sodium carbonate. You can get it in the big box stores, sometimes in the grocery store. And of course, baking soda is sodium bicarbonate. That's readily available all over the place in the grocery stores. But mix that together. You see on the drywall here and on the baseboards, you can give that a good spray sponge, or even with a scrub brush. Good application. Scrub it, rinse it. Probably give it another application. If you find it looking good and you're satisfied with that, then reapply that solution again and leave it to dry. And this type of solution, this recipe will give you some protective qualities to prevent mold and mildew from coming back. And there's also another kind of product that's even a little bit better than this. It's an antimicrobial product that's a kind of a sophisticated organic molecule. And you can find that also in the big box stores, and you can get it online. And unfortunately, we don't get into name brands, but you would just have to go to the big box stores, to the paint section, and tell them you want a non-bleach based product. And bleach, again, is, has the chlorine in it. So you just look for something that doesn't have, it's sodium hypochlorite. So you just look for something that doesn't have the chlorine in there if you want something different than that. So there's really kind of three kind of ways to go. So there's the bleach, and then there's the baking soda, washing soda, and then there's the antimicrobials. And you could just kind of do some research there. And one other thing that you can try if you have a room that has a moderate to minor amount of mold spores floating around in the air, and you kind of have that musty smell, is you can get a good disinfectant spray that says not a masking agent, but a disinfectant spray, and spray it liberally. And a good one will say kills 99% viruses, bacteria, so on and so forth. And at the end, it'll say mold and mildew spores. So that helps. It doesn't get rid of the source, but it kind of helps makes things spell better while you're in the process. So that's just another thing to keep in mind in your cleanup process. And so let's talk about furniture. If you see here in this picture, looks like this had some major flooding in this room. It got up a couple of feet and way up above the sitting line on this upholstered furniture right here. So, and it probably sat there for quite a while. So that's basically a throwaway item. Not much you can do with that. But if you do have some upholstered furniture that didn't get too badly damaged, maybe just a little bit down at the bottom, you could try washing that with a soap solution, and then come back and hit that with the washing soda or a antimicrobial solution, and to see if that would help. You could probably save it with that. And also, if you see here on the left, that looks like a pressed wood piece of furniture there. And that's probably not going to make it. That's deteriorating. That's kind of mold decayed, and that's going to crumble, and you're not going to be able to save that. But if you've got some good hardwood furniture that wasn't too badly damaged and didn't sit in a lot of flood waters, then you might be able to save that, rinse off the debris, and wash it with soap and water. Allow it to dry slowly. If it's a nice day, take it outside, and then again, let it dry slowly and evenly. You can apply some pine oil, or better yet, a good name brand furniture oil, and see if you can bring the luster back. Some sanding may be required, and you may have to sand and do some refinishing, or take it to a furniture refinisher. And there's some websites that go into that a little more detailed. I'm just kind of hitting the surface of it, and at the end, I have a slide here with some websites that will give you some links to some more information on that. So for cleaning up your textiles, your drapes, your blankets, your clothes, and if you had whatever was down on the floor, if it's set for a long time in contaminated floodwaters, I wouldn't take a big chance on that. But if it's not too badly damaged, for the light colors, You could try to wash them in warm water and regular bleach, and it may take a couple of, you may have to run it through a couple of times. So for the dark colors, you can try this. You can use a sodium borate product, and there's a well-named brand product that you can probably figure out based on that. That works really well. And the washing soda, that product that I referenced a couple of slides back. So either one of those, and both of those, both the sodium borate kind of product and washing soda are also widely used in modern day powdered washing detergents too. So they're still well used. They're good soaps. They don't they don't fade out the colors or cause them to run, and they do kill mold and mold spores. So they're good soaps. And also, by the way, borate solutions. That's not a bad product for cleaning the studs, or if you want to spray it under the house. It also has some fire retardant protection and termite protection. So that has just an extra advantage. So, especially if you got some clothes that have been hanging up in the closet after a storm, and then the mold spores start floating around and you develop into mildew, then this is a good way that you could go about, especially for either light or dark. So that gives you a couple of options there. And actually, for those products on the borate solution and the washing soda, about a cup of each one of those ought to do it. And again, you may have to use more than one cycles to get it all done. Just depends on how bad it is. So for mold testing, and we frequently get some questions on testing for mold. Is it worth it? How does it work? So there are some home test kits available, and they range from about $8.99 to $30 on up to $60. And of course, the better ones they're more expensive. Most professionals are pretty skeptical of the lower range, the lower price products. So the better ones will usually give you two cultures. You put one outside to get a benchmark for how much mold is on the outside, and then you compare that to the culture on the inside, and you can get an estimation on what the difference is from the outside to the inside, and it can tell you how well you've cleaned up and gotten rid of the mold on the inside. And you can also hire a remediation expert or environmental hygienist, and you're looking at $500 or $600 depending on where you live. But you can get a very thorough report with a high degree of accuracy, and you can feel pretty good about what you have there. And from what I can tell, most cities, parishes, municipalities do not require you to have a mold certification after cleaning up from a disaster. You may want it for peace of mind. Also, if it's a rental property, the renter may require you to have that. That's up to you. And if you're selling the property, then the potential buyer may ask you for that. So that would be up to you. It might, give you peace of mind. So you would have to make a decision on that. So that's all up to you. And here's some handy websites that you can go to for more information. And they also have some links to more in-depth information on some of the things that I touched up. So for sure, the Centers for Disease Control, which is cdc.gov, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, which is flash.org, and they're very good for rebuilding and retrofitting. And Environmental Protection Agency, which is epa.gov. And again, you just have to kind of navigate around, but they have a lot of links and navigate around, and you can find a lot of information on most things that you're looking for. So that concludes what I have on this slide, and hopefully you were able to get some information out of that. And also, if you want some more information on this subject or anything else related to information and would like to speak to CEO specialist, we'd love to talk to you. And we have a phone bank number, and you could call in on 1-8333-FEMA-4US. That's 1-833-FEMA-4US. And also we have an email, and you can send an email, and we're monitoring that, and we'll be glad to get back to you and send you information and links and attachments. And that's FEMA-LA-MIT@FEMA.dhs.gov. And that concludes what I have on this webinar. Thank you for listening.